You're praying for clarity, but you already know what God said. The hard part isn't hearing Him, it's trusting yourself enough to actually follow through. Let that settle for a second, because this is where so many women get stuck. Not in hearing God, but in trusting the woman He called. Hey, beautiful friend, welcome to Fearless and Worthy Woman, Walking Boldly in Your Calling. I'm your host, Alexandria Daugherty, and this is where faith meets real life. Around here, we believe in who God says we are, obey His calling, lead with confidence, and do the work faithfully because you were never meant to play small with the gifts He's given you. Before we dive in, make sure you grab your free permission to pause lock screens in the description. They are daily reminders that you don't have to earn rest to deserve it. We are in our Obey series this week, and today we're talking about something that most women will likely never admit out loud. You are not waiting on God. You are waiting to feel confidence enough to obey Him. So grab your coffee, open your heart, and let's get to it. If I am going to be honest, trusting my own voice has never come naturally to me. And it's not because I have this lack of faith in God or this lack of love for Him. Instead, it's more because of the story that I grew up with. I was adopted, and before I was adopted, life was really unstable and unpredictable, but I was adopted at a really young age. After I was adopted, I was raised hearing I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't pretty enough. Just not enough. That was the message that I heard over and over again. So I learned early on that the safest thing that I could do was to stay quiet, to not make waves, to not trust my own instincts, and definitely to not draw unnecessary attention to myself. And that voice stayed with me for so long. It's wrapped itself around the decisions I make. It's shaped how I really see myself, and it's made me second guess every idea that God drops into my heart. So when God started nudging me toward this work, sharing my story, being vulnerable, speaking about faith publicly, the first wall that I ran into was not this fear of failure. Instead, it was this fear of being seen. And honestly, that fear wasn't even about strangers seeing me. It was about people from my own past, people who might roll their eyes, or people who might say, who in the world does she think she is now? People who remember that version of me that didn't have confidence, didn't have healing, that didn't have a voice, and was too scared to use it. There were so many moments where God whispered, "Tell your story." And I would sit there and argue with Him and whisper back, "No, not yet. I'm not ready." Not because I didn't want to obey Him and to step into my calling, but because that obedience meant that I was going to have to allow myself to be visible. And visibility never felt safe growing up. But here's the thing, every time I pushed back, that discomfort grew. And I don't think that it was God punishing me by any means, but instead, He wouldn't let me settle for this version of my life that I was trying to hide. And when I finally said, okay, God, I am ready to step into this, even if it's scary, even if I don't know what in the world I'm doing, I'm ready to step into alignment with what you're calling. And when I did that, something inside of me really loosened up. It didn't fix everything by any means. I still struggle. I still battle those old thoughts from time to time. But that moment that I stopped trying to run from my calling and to run from that obedience, and I just took the next step, I felt this peace that I hadn't felt in a really long time. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Now, that verse is not telling us that we need to just be fearless all the time. But it is saying that fear does not get that final say in our life. What does get that final say is God's presence, His strength, His hand, His guidance. Obedience is not so much about your courage, but more about a relationship with Him and His companionship. Here's what's happening inside of you when that obedience feels so hard and so impossible. Your brain is wired for safety, not obedience. So when you were criticized or overlooked, or you were told as a child that you weren't enough, what your brain heard and what it learned is, my voice isn't safe. My instincts cannot be trusted. Being visible leads to pain. So now as an adult, anytime God invites you to speak up or to take a step or to step out in faith, your brain goes into protection mode. And it's not because you have a lack of faith necessarily, but more because your nervous system was trained to expect that rejection and to expect it even before it happened, or even regardless of whether or not it was going to happen. That is why obedience feels like this big game of tug-of-war. Your spirit hears God clearly, but your brain remembers who hurt you. And then your body reacts to that before you even think about it. But with all of that being said, there's also hope, because your brain can learn that safety again. It can learn through movement. It's not going to learn through perfection, but it can learn through movement and action. So every time you obey in small ways, maybe that looks like sharing your story or speaking the truth or taking the next step towards your goal, your brain gets new evidence. That evidence being that this didn't destroy me. This was okay. This was safe. I am safe. That obedience becomes this path where your healing and your rewiring meet somewhere in the middle. Which brings us to our faith step of the day. I invite you to finish this sentence. If I wasn't afraid of how I'd be perceived, I would, you fill in the blank. What would you do? And I invite you again, write this down. I don't want you to judge it. I don't want you to sit there and overthink it. But instead, answer that in honesty. What truly comes to mind? What is on your heart? If you're being honest, what would you do if you weren't afraid? If you weren't afraid of how you would be perceived? Then, when you have that written down, choose one little tiny step that you could take toward that thing today. Not the whole thing, just one baby step, because inch by inch is how your trust is going to grow. And when you start building that trust, that obedience gets built on top of it. I hope today's episode reminded you that faith is not meant to just sit still. Keep showing up. Keep taking those small steps. And more importantly, keep trusting that God is going to meet you right there in the motion and in the action that you're taking. If this spoke to your heart, share it with a friend who needs it, and make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss your faith step of the day. And before you go, make sure you grab your free Truth Exchange worksheet. You'll find the link in the description. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are called. Empowering you always.